So I'm picking this bad boy up. I am Colleen, number 3 of 4 children and middle daughter. My dad had such a unique gift of making everyone feel like they were his favorite. They were special in his eyes. The favorite kid, favorite friend, favorite grandchild, favorite whatever. My brother, his one and only son, his baseball buddy, his same goofy sense of humor. He's Johnny whatever. Kara, well, she married Burke. She was the oldest. She's confident, she's a leader, and she's easy to admire with her strength. Krista, she's the baby. She's a free spirit. She's so fun and incredibly courageous. But I was his car business baby. I was the most like him, and therefore, I was his real favorite. At least as far as I'm concerned. My dad could relate to anyone, and he somehow managed to be our best friend while still being our dad. When I was a senior in high school, right here at O'Connell, as a matter of fact, there's a couple people from O'Connell in here right now that were with us at this thing. My dad came to dinner with me, my prom date, and a few friends. I mean, who invites their dad to come to prom dinner with them? What's even better is that every single one of those people at the table wanted him there. I have a gazillion other stories just like that with my dad. But as fun and awesome as my dad was, he was equally tough on us kids. He required a lot from us. He didn't expect perfection, but he did expect that we gave everything we had to everything that we did. He was the first person all 4 of us called with good news, and the first person all 4 of us called for advice. The space that my dad held in my life was so huge and impactful that there was no way to replace it. So for the past few months, I've held on to my faith and the fact that my day will one day again fill that space himself in heaven, our forever home. I needed to learn more about this forever home when he passed. Not just be able to say he's in a better place because that's the right thing to say, but I wanted Aunt Nancy to know that I know that I know with every fiber of my being that he was in heaven, that heaven was real, and that my dad was alive again. I believe since God is such a personal God and reaches us all in a way that's just right for us, that our journey to heaven will be just the same. If you read people's near-death experiences, which I have read a lot about since my dad went home, they all seem to have a unique way that they get to be with Jesus. So I believe, and I think it matches scripture, that each of our journeys to heaven, when we take our last breath here on earth, will look a little different. I'd like to think that my dad was somehow on a boat, with his baseball hat on backwards, traveling next to a big baseball field, with the sound of clanging bats and country music in the background. Maybe for effect, Jesus let him hear a little third base coach giving a reassuring, "You all right? You all right?" to a boy on second base. Many people say that this journey, they see their life pass before them more clearly and more vivid than when they actually lived it here on earth. So I'm sure if that's the case, that my dad saw his kids and his grandkids, along with his great friends somewhere along that journey, because people were the most important thing to my dad. He loved people. I know God would have let him see clearly on our faces in that life rerun how each one of us looked up to him and how each one of us admired him. Scripture reveals that we have some sort of welcoming committee when we get to heaven. I like to think of the people that God brought to welcome my dad home. I know in the front row was his mom and dad, my nanny and granddaddy Coons. I didn't know my grandfather well because I was only 8 when he passed away, but my nanny Coons was one awesome lady. He got his love for family from her for sure. Best Christmas ever. I know his brother Joe, who he admired so much, was standing right next to them. I think my granddaddy Stigley was there too. He's my mom's dad and was one of my heroes, just like my dad. I had a miscarriage before I had Billy, and I know my dad got to meet his grandson or granddaughter that he had never met on this earth at that welcoming committee. With as much love as much as my dad loved his grandchildren, I can only imagine what that first meeting must have been like after all these years. I just love that he still gets to be granddad there. I wonder who else God brought with him to the door of my dad's new forever home. Was it just the people who touched my dad along the way, or did God bring all the people that my dad touched along the way? Scripture doesn't tell us for sure, but I know that whoever God brought, it was just the right and perfect people that my dad needed to feel home. I know one thing for sure. My dad will be front and center of my welcoming committee when I am called home. After our personal journey in welcoming committee greets you, I believe you come to a gate of entryway. Scripture describes this gate in heaven in the book of Revelation, as well as many other places. The foundation is 12 layers high, each made with a beautiful gem. Jasper, sapphire, emerald, etc. The gate itself was made of pearl, one simple pearl, the book of Revelation says, all lit up by the light and the glory of God. I can just imagine as my dad and his welcome committee approached this most magnificent, beautiful, incredible scene. His senses more alive than they had ever been here on earth. The sight, the smell, the colors, the sound of music, all alive and permeating every ounce of his soul. My dad was a crier. My dad was a patriot who loved this country and took tremendous pride in being an American. He cried often when the national anthem played at a sporting event. He cried at the good news of something happening to us kids or his grandkids. He was just a crier, and I can just picture him standing there in awe with those beautiful baby blue eyes filled with tears as he was escorted into his new forever home. The music had to stand out. I just know it did. The heavenly music that sent tingles down his arm as he heard it for the first time. What an entrance he received. Forget the red carpet or the hail to the chief that our president receives on his entrance into a room. This is bigger, better, more extravagant and personal than any of these earthly entrances. And what an entrance all of us who believe get to hope for. Once inside the gate, my dad was home. He was able to feel the presence of Jesus like never before on earth because he is finally home with Jesus. My dad now walks with God. How cool is that? My dad could sell anything to anyone, literally. He was so full of energy that just his presence made the entire showroom tingle with energy. I think that was one of the gifts my dad had that allows us to see just a tiny piece of heaven. The presence of Jesus is going to make us all tingle so deeply, so completely, so perfectly, that it's going to be the most beautiful buzz of energy we've ever experienced. Another gift that my dad had that reminds me of heaven was his ability to love. He loved deeply, he loved fully, and he loved completely. In the end, it doesn't matter how much we accomplish on the earth, how much money, how successful, how many houses, how big of a reputation, how whatever. It matters how much we loved, because Jesus is love. God puts people along our path in life, and he wants us to love them. Not just our families, our friends, our employees, but every single person along the way. He wants us to give freely, and he wants us to love generously. My dad did that very well. Another gift my dad had that gives us just a little taste of heaven was his ability to discern. You know when you're telling a story, trying to prove a point, and you explain a situation at work or whatever, and you fill the space with all of the emotional details? My dad was so great at being able to get rid of all the junk and hit directly to the point. It's like all the junk just didn't matter because he was able to get right to the heart of the issue. He fully understood without needing to know every detail. When my dad got to heaven, his entire life was out in the open. Every little detail. And yet, Jesus was able to look right into his heart and make him feel more valued, more loved, and more accepted than he had ever been. The details of his life, the mistakes, the emotions behind, decisions, although known, didn't matter because Jesus was able to look right at the heart of the matter, right smack dab in the middle of who my dad was as a man, and make him feel more loved, more accepted than he had ever felt. For the first time, My dad felt fully known and fully the person God created him to be. Some people think that heaven is boring. My dad is just sitting there, bored, worshiping day and night, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what Scripture implies. Heaven is feasting. Heaven is celebrating. Heaven is working, traveling, discovering, and fellowshipping, and all in love with God's light, feeding our souls with energy. If God created earth as beautiful as it is, why would we assume heaven, which he calls paradise, be any less spectacular? The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands, Psalm 19:1 tells us. Because I've spent most of my life in Northern Virginia, I haven't had many opportunities to see the billions of stars in a clear night sky, not clouded by light in a developed city. But the few times I have, it has been such a magnificent and incredible sight to see. The vastness and greatness only declares how majestic and awesome is the God who made it. My dad is now able to travel through that vast, incredible dimension at the blink of an eye and just for fun, and I think that's pretty cool. As much as my dad loved to travel, I know he's taking full advantage of that aspect of heaven. My dad lived his life just like his favorite song says. He did it his way. His timing, his restaurant, his drink, his idea, his opinion. Patrick, his best sporting player, was definitely better than anyone that you could mention. Just for the record, LeBron James was better than, Michael Jordan was better than LeBron James. Just ask my dad. And as long as you agreed with him, you were right. Well, it's the same in heaven. There's only one way. It's no longer his way, but I have a feeling that my dad happily handed over his stubborn, gotta be my way reins to the one and only Lord of Lords and King of Kings. I know that my dad is in heaven. He's more alive than he's ever been. He's freer than he's ever been. More complete, more whatever, fill in the blank. Heaven is real, and it's just more. I believe Jesus greeted my dad with something like this. Johnny, my precious son, although you took a long and windy road to get here, you loved well, you gave generously. Welcome home, my good and faithful servant.